audio summits are a really, really great way for people to kind of hit all three, that trifecta of relationship building, both with the people who are listening to the summit, but also the speakers, that revenue growth, and then, of course, the list growth.
Welcome, everybody, to another case study episode of Launch a Private Podcast. This is going to be a fun one for so many reasons. One is it's completely async, held over Voxer. So when you got a couple of SaaS founders trying to get some shit done, this is how it ends up. We end up async. We also love audio, right? So this is an option for us. So this is going to be our first async interview. We're hosting it completely over Voxer, and I'm excited about it. And it is with the CEO and co-founder of MemberVault. This is one of our favorite learning management softwares. We've been a fan of them, oh my gosh, for so long. I've been a fan of Erin and Mike. I remember when we were launching Hello Audio, we were talking to Mike about software stuff, and they've always been so giving. As many of you, if you know Erin, how she is in her communities, always sharing her strategies. And so I'm excited to nerd out about MemberVault, nerd out about audio summits, and nerd out about all things, I don't even know, just audio. It's going to be a super fun time. So welcome, Erin. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for that awesome intro, Lindsay. I'm really excited to jam out with you and Nora today, asynchronously. So it's really cool to be the first async interview with you all, because async is pretty much the only way I do things, both because it allows me to have more impact with less time, and I can keep my calendar clear, which with 3 little kids that I'm homeschooling, that is definitely a requirement. I feel like literally every time I've had something on my calendar, someone's been sick or needed me. And so just having a clear calendar is one of my primary business and life goals. It's just works best for me and my life, and it feels nice. So async is the way. So thinking about it, when did I first hear about private podcasting? I mean, I think it was when Hello Audio came into my life, and I've pretty much loved Hello Audio since then. Since the beginning, we snatched up a founding license with you all when you offered that, because I could immediately see the possibilities. And then actually last year, I switched to your Powerhouse plan because the unlimited private feeds are so freaking useful. Hello Audio and MemberVault play so nicely together that I always see so many different opportunities. So right now, how I'm using Hello Audio and MemberVault is that I use it for my call replay. So when I have a call with one of my consultants around let's say SEO, I actually have a private feed of all of our replays. And so I can very easily on one of my walks just pop in my earbuds and listen on 2x to one of the replays if I want to refresh my memory about something that we talked about. So that alone is something that I super value Hello Audio for. You actually help me do my job better and more efficiently and effectively. So that is huge. And I don't think enough people know that possibility or think to do it. And it is just, for me at least, it is incredibly helpful. And then I have used Hello Audio and MemberVault for my 15 plus low cost offers. And that has been huge. I've gotten so much amazing feedback from people about having not only the private podcast feed. So a lot of people really love to listen on the go like I do, but I've actually found that a lot of people really love the embedded audio option, the player that Hello Audio provides for the feed. And so we put the entire feed inside of our MemberVault product. And then in the lessons that have the transcripts, we'll also embed the individual lesson player with that one episode. And I've discovered 50% of people listen that way. And they really like to have the player right above the transcript so that they can kind of be scanning through the transcript as they listen, which was really surprising to me, because for me, I was all about the private podcast feed on my phone, on the go, on a walk, or driving the car. And so I hadn't even really thought about that many people preferring the embedded option in their browser. But it's actually been really popular. And of course, it looks really slick and professional, and Hello Audio makes it super easy. You just grab the embed code. So that's been a huge thing. I've gotten so much feedback from people that they've actually gone through the content so much faster and actually taken action because it was so accessible. And I know that personally, when I've consumed other people's content, when they include a private podcast feed or an audio version, I actually do it. And that's we could go on for hours about how amazing that is for actually getting people to do the thing and to do it more quickly. And there's also, and I always felt this with public podcasts as well, there is such an increased trust factor when people are listening to your voice as they're working through the thing that they're trying to solve. So to me, I can't imagine not having a Hello Audio feed for any content that I put out that I want to be actionable. And then, of course, the reason why I'm on today is to talk about how I'm using Hello Audio for summits. So in 2024, I ran 2 different summits using Hello Audio, and I'm actually at the very end of organizing my 3rd summit, which is happening March 11th through the 13th. And, Hello Audio has made it super, super slick, super easy. And I've done each summit very differently just because I like to experiment and see what works best. And I've been happy with all of the different formats. So I can't fully say that I love the 3rd format because we haven't actually gone through it yet. So I can always report back after that summit ends on how that goes. And the 3rd summit that I'm doing, the one that's happening next week, is following a much more traditional summit format. Whereas my first 2 summits, the first one was completely evergreen and ungated, which I know breaks all the rules. And yet it has been very successful as a traffic generator. And it was really great for engagement. And there's a lot of things to love about it. And the second summit format was kind of a traditional summit format. But then once the live summit ended, it became a low cost offer that I then sold on permission with the speakers and all that good stuff. I took care of our speakers and it became a low cost offer that I sold long after the fact. And I still have that I use for bonuses and incentives and that kind of thing. So that was a really fun way to quickly spool up a low cost offer that I know people are going to want. So that worked really well too. And then the summit that's happening next week is your traditional format where it's free for the 3 days that the summit is happening. And then there's 2 passes where you can get lifetime access. And of course, the VIP pass includes something extra, a training around taking action around something that's covered in the summit. So I'm pretty excited about that format as well. And Hello Audio and MemberVault working together. It's so easy. I can do both from my phone. Love everything about Hello Audio. I've been such a big fan for so long, and I just love how our integration works. So very excited to dig in deeper on this.
I love that you have all this experience doing audio summits in different ways. But before we jump into kind of the nuances of some of the different ways and maybe why you made some decisions around doing it a specific way, I'm wondering if we could just start with the basics, because we may have some listeners that have maybe heard about audio summits. Maybe they don't fully understand what it is. And I'm curious the way you set up your logistics. So we definitely have had folks who have probably experienced a traditional video-based summit. And if you're listening to this and you've ever been part of running or setting up behind the scenes a video-based summit with live speakers, that is not an insignificant amount of work. It is a lot of work, or it can be. And so looking at an audio summit, I know we've definitely had folks ask questions in our community whether it's better to do presentations live just from an energy standpoint. Can they really be done asynchronously with speakers? Do you just drop recordings in and it's the delivery that's primarily audio? So I'm wondering if you would speak a little bit about the way you've set it up and some of the things that you've discovered and how you've logistically run things with your speakers. And maybe if you have any tips or suggestions for someone who is very new to audio summits, how you would maybe suggest they would get started.
That is such a great question. So for me, years and years went by and I saw other people doing summits and raving about them. And I was like, there is no way that I will ever do that, because one of my, like I've shared, one of my leading principles is that I want to have a clear calendar. And so I don't want to book up a bunch of speaker interviews and panels and all that good stuff, which, if that's something that people enjoy doing and it works well for them and they like showing up live and they find that to be easier, then awesome, do you. But for me, that felt like completely daunting and not what I wanted to do. And so I fell into the audio summit idea backwards, in the sense that we had a public podcast where we were showcasing our member stories. So for MemberVault, and it was called Made with MV, and it was completely asynchronous. And so we had, through MemberVault, we had a way for people to submit their asynchronous audio. So they would record it on their end, submit the file to us. We were able to, on our own time, add that to the podcast and run it. And it was so easy and so streamlined that I was like, maybe I could do this for a summit. And so I started thinking it through and what I could automate, what I could streamline. And that is how I first ran and experimented with my first audio summit. The other piece of it is as a consumer, I had experienced the ability to binge via a private podcast feed on a couple of different like webinar replays and trainings that normally would be video based. And I would never sign up for them. I would never buy them because I would know that I'm not going to actually consume that content. And I found that because it said that it was a private podcast feed, and some of them had audio, had video as well, and some of them were just pure audio. And because that was on the sales page and because that was on the sign up page, I actually purchased it or signed up for it and did the thing. Like I actually consumed the content. And so for me, it was a big eye opening experience on the consumer end that this makes it so much more accessible for so many more people. Now, I've discovered this through polling the MemberVault audience. So there are a lot of people who do prefer live calls or they prefer watching video versus listening to audio. And so you have to keep that in mind that there are so many different ways that people prefer to consume content. And even I have found with polling around the audio content that a lot of people will actually listen to the private podcast feed, but then they will come back and they will listen to the embedded audio player with the transcript on the second time, more as a like deep dive, like when they're actually taking action. So they listen to the private podcast feed to get the big picture like perspective. And then they'll actually go and they'll consume it in a different way when they are trying to use it in a different way. So they're actually taking action on it. And so I think it's really fascinating just to see all of those different nuances. But as a creator, being able to do asynchronous audio where our speakers submit their audios via MemberVault, we have a speaker portal that's invisible, a speaker portal product. And they submit all of their speaker information. They sign their speaker agreement. They submit their speaker audio and everything. And we're able to completely automate all of that good stuff and automate following up with them through our connection with ActiveCampaign. And you could do that with any of our integrated email partners. It really does. I mean, it's at least 50% of the workload completely removed. And so that was really important to me. And then I was able to keep my calendar completely clear even while running these summits. And so that was obviously a really big goal for me. And what I did and what I've continued to do is I have an outline for the speakers in terms of like how to record their audio. So like make sure you introduce yourself, make sure you do this next, and then you do this next, so that there is a consistency across all the sessions. And that has been really, really helpful. And I think it's also helpful for the speakers because they're not just staring at their microphone and wondering what they need to start with. And so there's no one to prompt them when it's asynchronous. And so the outline has been really, really helpful. And I've heard from so many speakers that they wouldn't have been able to participate if we hadn't been doing it asynchronous and that it was their favorite. In fact, with the summit that I'm running next week, one of the speakers said that it was her favorite summit she's ever participated in because it was so easy for her to squeeze in recording her session. So to me, that's really, it's a win-win that it's easy. Actually, it's a win-win-win. It's easy for me as a creator. It's easy for people to participate as speakers. And then it's easy for the people on the consumption end because they can, this has always been really important. I don't drip out the episodes. I actually let people binge. So we release everything all at once because I know that is, again, through polling MemberVault accounters, that's really, really important. People really like to be able to binge their content all at once. And I know there's strategic reasons for dripping it out, but that's just the strategy that I've chosen is to make it easy for people to consume the content when they want to consume it and how they want to consume it. And Audio Summits has just made that so easy to actually organize and to host and to see people getting the benefits. And so where my engagement comes in is through how I set up the product, the actual summit product. So there's like quiz questions inside of MemberVault where they're able to engage there. And then we have a community and we have emails that we're sending out. And so that is how we have that kind of engagement and where people can give speaker feedback and all that good stuff. So it has been a format that has worked really, really well for me and has been pretty low lift compared to your standard summit where you're doing a bunch of video interviews and you gotta, make sure that you show up with looking good with your hair done and have good lighting and internet and making sure that your speakers have the same and people aren't like no showing and because life shows up. I mean, in the summit that's happening next week, we had two speakers who, because of what's going on in the world right now, like they had stuff happen that they were not able to get their audios in on time. But if we were doing a live call, that would have been probably a canceled session. And instead we were able to work with them to actually include their audio. So it adds so much flexibility to the process, but also streamlining the experience so that I can continue running summits because they are a really great way to grow your list.
I think that's the biggest part of Summit. Everyone's always said it's a great way to build your list. And the more traditional way of hosting a summit is that's not an insignificant amount of work to grow the list, right? And so I'm curious, especially for folks that might be listening to this that maybe are in the early stages of list growth or early stages of building their audience. And, maybe they hadn't considered a summit because of traditionally the amount of work or the lift that it might include for them. And now hearing about audio summits, hearing, about the ease of it, I'm curious if you think that audio is also a selling point to attract maybe speakers that you don't maybe have not necessarily a personal relationship with, but there's definitely, as you think about the speakers that you might want to have in a summit, you might not have personal connections with everybody. And I'm wondering if you have found speakers react favorably or more positively to producing an audio versus a workshop or a presentation and things like that. I know for myself and for Lindsay is, when Hello Audio was asked to participate in whether it's a summit or just do a presentation, it would be a lot more attractive to us to do audio only versus having to create another presentation or slide deck or things like that. And I'm curious if you have found that to be a way, almost like a selling point to have maybe more speakers participate than otherwise would.
Oh yeah, that is a great point. So in all of the summits that I've done and the bundle that I organized that had some audio components to it, but I don't want to go out on that tangent. But I will say that the easier you can make it for the people that you're reaching out to, especially if they're not already in your audience. So if it's someone that you're wanting to build a relationship with and you want to have them maybe because they have a really large audience or they have a focus that is going to be a really great benefit to your summit, making it as easy as possible for them to say yes is going to increase your success rate. So for me, everyone that I have reached out to has said yes. And I think that is both because it's a pretty small outlay of energy in the sense that they just have to create an audio. It's not a super long audio. They don't have to use slides. They don't have to give up time on their calendar. They don't have to show up. I don't have any kind of requirements around showing up in the community when we have summits. And, I want to make it a win-win. So I make it really attractive for the summit speakers to participate. But I do think, based on both what people have said before they've done the recordings and then what they've shared with me after they've gone through the process, is that having it be audio made it an easy yes for them. And of course, most of my speakers have been people that have come from the MemberVault audience because I want to be showcasing things that are involving people who are using MemberVault for their business. But I have also reached out to people who are outside of the MemberVault audience, and that easy, you don't have a bunch of promotional requirements. You don't have to create a slide deck. You don't have to show up and do Zoom. You don't have to, be super active in the summit community. I only have them do one email requirement for promotions. All of those things make it a lot easier for people to say yes, because you're basically giving them free visibility in exchange for them recording maybe a 20-minute audio, and you're making it super easy for them to get that result. And so, yeah, I think that makes it absolutely a much higher success rate. And for people who are considering doing this for growing their list, the thing that I want to mention is that I think, yes, summits are really great for list growth. Yes, they can also be really great for revenue. If you have, let's say a lifetime pass, or if you're doing some other kind of upsell, Lizzie Goddard often does, some kind of get it done week that's around the topic of the event. And, so it can be really great for growing your revenue. But the thing that summits are really excellent for as well is connections. So you can connect with people that you want to have a relationship with, either because you think that they would be an excellent client for you, but also perhaps a really great collaboration partner in the future to do other types of things with, and inviting them to be a part of your summit where you're doing all the heavy lifting for them and they're getting visibility is a great way to kick off that relationship. So yeah, I think audio summits are a really, really great way for people to kind of hit all three, that trifecta of relationship building, both with the people who are listening to the summit, but also the speakers, that revenue growth, and then, of course, the list growth.
I love that you brought up the networking piece, the collaboration piece. 100% agree. It's such a great way to meet people. And then they're happy because you gave them something easy to do, right? Like audio and async. Yes, please. So what's funny is I'm asking this question. I'm going to ask this next question, but you are actually currently in the middle of your launch right now. I believe it's Stuffed It. And we were going to try to get this episode out in time, but it looks like we won't be able to. And so hopefully we can get a recap as well. But how cool is that you're live running an audio summit and you're also simultaneously recording a podcast interview? Like, that's pretty fun. So the question we haven't asked yet, or really got to hear a lot about, is about these three different type of summits. And you said that obviously the third one is happening right now and you'll have some more data on that. But I'd love to hear the choices you made in these three different ways of organizing. You highlighted it a little bit in your intro, but let's dig a little bit deeper into what made you make the decisions you had made around how to run these audio summits, and see if you can give us some really good insights or takeaways for our listeners who are possibly thinking of launching their own, things that you've learned along the way, things that surprised you, that kind of stuff. And I hope your summit's going really well.
Yeah, so the summit actually kicked off today and it's going really, really well. I was actually reflecting as I was listening to your audio that it's really cool. Right now, I actually have 4 different use cases with Hello Audio, which little Hello Audio plug. So right now we're having this asynchronous podcast interview, which is actually the first time I've ever done it. So I've always done asynchronous where someone just either I submit the audio or it is submitted to me, and it's not a back and forth conversation. So I'm really glad that we are trying this out, and I'm curious to hear the finished product because it's been really interesting. Like, I have had visitors. I've been solo parenting. I've been in the last stages of launching a summit, and we've been having this conversation. So with very limited time on my part. So it's really cool because there's no way that it would have happened otherwise. So yeah, so I have this asynchronous conversation that we're having, and then I have the audio summit that just kicked off today. And it's been really fun. I'm going to talk in a second about the different structures, but this is more like the traditional structure with the lifetime passes and everything. And that's been fun to see that revenue coming in and just the engagement and excitement about the topic. And then I have, a low cost audio product that I created probably 2 years ago, year and a half ago, around hosting and launching a summit in MemberVault and using Hello Audio, of course. And I actually walk through the 3 different, so I'm going to be updating that mini course with information about this third summit that I'm doing once we wrap. So it'll have the 3 different formats that I did and why I did it and how I set it up and all that good stuff. And so I actually have that turned on as pay what you want. So it's a low cost offer that is pretty much just a Hello Audio private podcast feed. And then, of course, have transcripts. And it has been really popular over the years. And it's really easy for me to update. This is not summit related, but just a side note for anyone who is thinking about doing that. Creating an audio low cost offer is that it's really easy to update it. You just record a new episode and throw it on there and add the transcript and you're done. So that's been a really fun thing to have in my paid product library. And I can just trot it out for a short period of time and make it available and have people go through. And it's, like I said before, it's really cool to see how much more action taking there is with an audio, especially the private podcast feed component. Although I know a lot of people consume via the embedded audio, but that's been really fun to just have those kinds of low cost offers with audio. And then the 4th thing is I have a consultant who's doing market research interviews for us. And she's, sending the audio replays over to me and I'm dropping them into a private podcast feed for myself so that I can listen on the go. So I've been doing that too over this past week. And, while I'm doing stretches and stuff, I can just, 2x listen to these replays. So there's a plug for having the unlimited powerhouse plan for Hello Audio because there's just so many different ways you can use it. Across all of the summits, I think some of the biggest takeaways for me is that having between 10 to 13 speakers seems to be a really good sweet spot in terms of being able to streamline things, because you always have, even if you streamline it like perfectly, there's still going to be people who let you know, like we had someone that had a health issue, and then we had somebody that had a travel issue. And so there's always going to be things that come up during the organization process. So if you have a huge summit with 30 speakers, like that is going to naturally, even if you have the best systems, like it is naturally going to take more time and be a little bit more stressful for you unless you have a team member that is handling it. So I think that the sweet spot is 10 to 13 because you have enough people that are sharing it. So even if a few speakers maybe don't send the email that they promised that they would send, or they, send it at a weird time, or maybe they just finished a launch and their email list is pretty checked out, you still have enough people to like counter that effect. And so I feel like that's definitely the kind of group size that I look for when I'm creating these summits, because it's worth my while in terms of the traffic generation and the content that is created and the relationships that I'm, nurturing, without it being completely overwhelming. Like when I did a bundle, which nearly broke me. So I think that's a really good group size. And then if you are going for a really, really big event, just know that, give yourself some extra time. That would be my recommendation. And a bigger event where you have a lot more speakers is probably going to be better for traffic generation. And so just making sure that you are accounting for the extra time that it's going to take you. And then on the flip side, having less speakers, if you want to have like a really, really focused topic, I think that having less speakers is a fun idea, and maybe something that I will do in the future, I think it makes it more accessible and achievable to the people who are signing up for the summit, because they have to be really interested in that topic, but they're probably going to listen to all of the sessions. And so that's something that I will probably play around with. But I think for traffic generation, 10 to 13 is a really good amount of speakers. Then the next thing that across all of the summits that I've done, I think is really important, is having affiliates. So having an affiliate program for the summit, it makes a huge difference. It really, really does, in terms of how much new list growth that you're going to see. And I feel like just the engagement also, because people are recommending it to their lists. And so it's a personal recommendation. And so I've had really good experiences having affiliates promote my summits. So I highly recommend that. I think that is a really, really good thing. And of course, it's an added benefit to the speakers that they can bring in affiliate commission by sharing it with their audience. So not only are they getting the credibility that they were part of the summit, but they also are getting the potential revenues. I feel like that's a really good sweet spot and win-win for people who are sharing it, and then also for yourself. So definitely recommend having an affiliate program for your summit. And then a big one for me is outsourcing, kind of just like the manual, like copying over the different embedded audio players and adding the transcripts and looking over them. We actually use TaskMagic for our timestamp transcripts and also for the recaps. And so just having someone else that's pulling that together, and that's something, pretty reasonably priced VA can easily do for you. And then also potentially having them create the graphics for you can really save you a lot of time and energy, and make it not a high cost investment to get that support if you don't have an existing team member, but to take a lot of the time part of running a summit off of your shoulder. So I'd highly recommend considering doing that. If I had more time and I was earlier stage business, like I totally would have done it myself. It's not really something that takes a ton of time, but where I am right now, like I look for all the places where I can be maximum efficiency. So having someone else do that for you and like build out your summit product is really, really helpful. So along those lines, streamlining the speaker management. So for example, like I made sure that I had an email template to reach out to all of the speakers each of the times that I had a touch point with them, so that I wasn't like having to manually write it each time. And I could actually just pull it into my inbox and, change the name and change any relevant links that I need to update and send that over. And so it was definitely way faster. And then anywhere that you can automate things, so that those were like the initial touch points with the speakers. But then once they were committed and had agreed to participate in the summit, and we'd had a back and forth about their topic and everything, then they went into an email automation that used conditional content and active campaign and the tagging power that MemberVault has, where you can actually tag people based on what quiz questions they've completed inside of the speaker portal. And I walked through all of this in the in that product that I was talking about, because I've done it a million times now and it's really easy. But for someone that isn't as familiar, it can feel a little intimidating, but it saves so much time because in the email, it shows, I have like 5 different follow-up emails to the speakers once they've been confirmed. And it's like, hey, you haven't signed your speaker agreement yet. But then if they have signed the speaker agreement in MemberVault, that piece of content doesn't show in the email, because in Active Campaign, we actually can look and say, like, does this tag exist or does it not? And most email tools have some form of conditional content or dynamic content. But that really, having that kind of automated system to follow up with your speakers and make sure they're actually submitting their stuff is going to save you so much like mental bandwidth. And if you decide to run repeated summits, then you just clone it and change a few things. And so each time you run your summit, you're spending less and less time actually organizing it and getting it ready to launch. So the first summit that I didn't have any kind of revenue generation. It was just completely ungated and evergreen. And that's something that I would change. So that's what I would recommend for anyone, is to have some sort of revenue generation, just because it's fun. You're putting work into it. And yes, you're bringing in new subscribers and you're growing your list, but it is really nice to also have that commission also coming in, or that revenue, I should say, and then the commission for your affiliates. And so my first summit, like, we had an affiliate program, but we just did prizes. And so there was no commissions for people to earn. And so I think that has been something that I've done for the last 2 summits. And I definitely will continue to do that, having some kind of revenue generating component to it. And so for the second summit I had sponsors. And then for this summit, I have the 2 different lifetime passes. So I'll probably keep experimenting with it. But I do think that having some sort of revenue generation just makes it more fun for you. And obviously, like, can offset your costs if you hired someone, or if you paid 2 speakers, and if you're doing any kind of like cash prizes for your affiliate program. And so it can really help counter that. So that would be something that I would keep in mind. And then remembering that people consume content differently. And so having transcripts, having the embedded audio from Hello Audio. So you can do the full feed player embedded, and then you can also do the individual sessions. And so the more we've done stuff like that and made it really easy for people to consume the content, the more engagement and feedback that we've gotten about people actually going through the content and really enjoying it. And then, of course, the private podcast feed, which is really popular with a lot of people. But I have found that people often consume it multiple times. They'll listen to the private podcast feed and they'll kind of blast through a bunch of sessions, and then they'll want to go back and either use the embedded audio player for a specific session that they want to actually get tactical on, or they'll look at the timestamped transcripts. And so having those different options is really key. So takeaways from individual summits, I think, if you are looking for long-term traffic generation, the evergreen ungated summit that we did first, for over a year, it was sending quite a bit of traffic our way. And I noticed that the speakers would still share it on social media, like months and months after the summit ended. And so I think that is a really fun strategy to play around with, especially if it's something that you can get really tactical about it and think about what's a really hot topic that has some good legs on it. I mean, AI, obviously, right? Like, you could have a summit where people are talking about like how AI is impacting a specific industry, and really dive deep on it and have that be a 1-pager on your blog that people can keep sharing, and makes them look good, makes them show up as an expert. And it also is sending traffic, and then, having it optimized for people to actually sign up. And so that was something that we didn't really do with our first summit, and I would change that, but it was just time. We didn't have enough time to really optimize with pop-ups and stuff on the summit pages that we had. So we had individual speaker pages with their sessions that they could share. And then we had a main speaker page that had the embedded full player and the links to the different individual blog posts with the transcripts and everything. And so I noticed that people definitely shared their individual pages, but the main podcast or the main summit page was shared, that was on our blog. So I think that could be a really fun, like, long-term traffic generating strategy that's maybe not even calling it a summit. It could be like a roundtable or something. But that was really interesting, how much we generated traffic from that over a long period of time. So that was a really interesting takeaway that I was curious about. And then the second summit, where it was free to participate and then got flipped to a low-cost product, that was really fun too. And so if you have a great idea that you want to, and you want to build up more paid resources, I think that is a really great strategy to pretty quickly not only grow your list, but also now have this like paid resource that you can sell over a long period of time. And obviously make sure that your speakers are aware that you're going to be doing that and that you compensate them and all that good stuff. But that was a really nice strategy as well. And then I'm really enjoying the lifetime pass structure that we're doing with this third summit, where we have 2 lifetime passes. One is they just get to keep lifetime access to the resources, or to the sessions, I should say. And then the VIP lifetime pass is they get that, lifetime access to the sessions, but they also get some additional trainings. And the thing that I really like about the VIP pass is not only are people, it's more money, it's $50. And so the affiliates that are promoting that are going to get a higher commission. And so not only are they going to get that higher commission, but it opens the door for kind of a longer conversation and nurture with the people who've signed up for that VIP pass that are not using MemberVault, and they weren't on our list. And so there's a really high value component there. So those are really, the biggest takeaways from all of the different summits. I've been happy with all of them. I think that I will continue running summits and playing around with different ways of structuring it and making the topic really, really focused, or making it more broad. Like the one that we're doing right now is, how to grow your list without social media. And so there's a bunch of different strategies that have worked. Each session is a different strategy for what has worked for that individual. And so it's kind of like a broad conversation around that topic. But I think that there is a lot of room for like a very, very focused topic as well. And so that's something that I probably will be playing around with this year, is making some really, really focused, hyper-focused topics, and maybe even playing around with potentially having some ungated content that can live on our blog around the super focused topic that we want people to associate with us. And then having that gated piece that, who knows, maybe it'll be a lifetime pass, maybe it'll be a low-cost product. We'll see. Depends on my whim at the moment. But there's just so much flexibility. And so I think that my biggest recommendation for anyone that's considering doing this is to do it. Like, test it out, see if you like it, and, look for the places where you can make it an easier lift for yourself, and make sure that you're considering the different parameters that are important to you, like bringing in revenue. How much revenue do you want to bring in for this thing? How much do you want to grow your list by? And then making the decisions accordingly. But I think that as much as I kind of scoffed at summits initially and thought that I would never run them, doing it with the asynchronous audio and being able to streamline it and getting to be creative with how I run them has made it something that will always probably be in my toolbox for as long as I'm creating content. So definitely a huge fan.
And here we are on the other side of that busy week. Thank you so much for all those details, you guys. I was over here taking notes because Erin has been doing this a long time, I'm going to say. And I feel like she just casually drops these tips. And I'm just like, that was a jam-packed recap of how your summit went. I don't know if you have any other results now that I think the summit is ending, but I think you also are doing some promo after the summit as well. So I don't know if you want to catch us up and touch base there, and then we'll get this thing wrapped up. This has been a very juicy episode, and Nora and I are also grateful that we were able to do async, just because it's busy. And maybe this is a format that we're going to roll out in the future when we offer to have guests come on. Maybe this is a choice that they can make. So thank you, Erin, for being a guinea pig. So yeah, if you want to give us any final thoughts on the summit, and then we'll wrap this puppy up.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been so fun to do this. And amidst all the chaos that was my life for the past few weeks, this was actually achievable. And actually have a few people who I've told that I was doing this, and they were like, you have to send me the episode once it's done, because I'm so curious how the asynchronous conversation flow goes. So I am also equally curious to hear it after you all glue all of the audios together, because this has been really fun. So thank you for having me. As far as the summit, yeah, I think, between all the other things I had going on, and then a summit, and then my partner was gone. And so I was soloing 3 kids for 5 days. So it was a lot all at once. So this weekend actually took some time to just recharge my introvert battery. So I'm feeling more like a whole human again. And looking at the numbers, so yes, we still have for the rest of the week, we have the lifetime passes that are still available. So I know our affiliates are actually still sharing that with their email list. And I'm going to be sending at least one more email to my list as well. So definitely some more sales that will be coming in because people buy at the last minute. I'm happy with the sales so far. Most of it is going to affiliates because my big goal with this was lift growth, not so much revenue, and encouraging our affiliates to keep sharing and giving them perks and all that good stuff. And so that has been really successful. As far as leads, we brought in 199 new subscribers who do not have accounts with us yet. And at least 40 of those have converted to our new 60-day free trial. So depending on when this episode goes live, that may or may not still be available, but you can go to membervault.co/free. We're definitely going to keep the 60-day trial out for a little while just because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now. And we want to give people extra space and grace to be able to, test things out, knowing that their capacity is probably a little bit lower than normal. So that has been really cool to see that we've already had 40 people come over and sign up for a free trial after signing up for the summit. So that's been really great. And then as far as traffic, we are actually almost to the point on our site of our usual average monthly traffic, and we're only basically mid-month. So to me, that has been something that I've seen with the summits that I've run, is that it definitely increases your site traffic. So I know that I could be doing a much better job than I currently have done with previous summits in terms of having pop-ups and that kind of thing, exit intent pop-ups and all that good stuff, to make sure that we are taking as much advantage of the increased eyeballs as possible. So that's going to be something that I will be playing around with in the future. But that has been something that I've noticed for all of our summits, is that it has skyrocketed our normal site traffic. So that's really cool and something that I want to continue playing around with. So overall, I would say I'm really, really happy with the summit. And as I mentioned before, the credibility piece, I've already had 2 people reach out. This has happened every single time I've run a summit. I've had people reach out in the few weeks after the summit ends to invite me to be on their summit or participate in their event. And so there's definitely more like, you're more front of mind for a lot of people. And that credibility piece is really a big one. That's been really cool. And one of them was an easy yes, like doing this asynchronous interview, because it's completely asynchronous audio only and very low lift. So I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. So overall, super happy. And now I am going to be moving on to all of my other projects and, tinkering with my next plan for my next type of event. So thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to listen to this episode and share it. And I love experimenting with you all.
And our final question, Erin, if you had a private podcast of your life's musings, what would it be called?
That's a toughie. Given that you're asking me right now, I think I'm going to go with, I would call it Surviving the Chaos, partly because just last night, I have 3 little kids. Just last night, I was going to grind some salt on my salad and sit down for, a hot second and enjoy my dinner. And I went to grind the salt, and like the entire top part just fell out into my salad with all of the chunks of salt, because my 3.5-year-old had deconstructed the salt grinder. I think that just captures what my life looks like. So yeah, Surviving the Chaos would be my private podcast. And also because I'm always experimenting and throwing out things to do and try. And I definitely bring my own chaos to my life. So yeah, I think that definitely encapsulates everything.
What a fun episode. We will see how this edit all turns out as we compile, it looks like 18 messages back and forth. So that's what we're going to edit into the script. And we'll see how this turns out, because this could be a great option for future guests. We can basically allow them to schedule either way, which maybe makes us record more content, which I think could be a positive. Anywho, Erin, again, I know you're not listening to this because I am recording this post, but thank you so much for coming on the show, and we can't wait to have you back on.
And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard. So let's turn the volume up. Until next time.